name is Ludwig Armbruster, and this video here is the second part of our video on how to create a cube in Analysis Services 2008 and configure the dimensions and browse the cube. Now, in the prior video in that series, we already created a data source and a data source view. And just to recap, we make a right click on data source, we say new data source, and we do the same with the data source view, say new data source view. Now those are the prerequisites to create an OLAP cube. As you can see now, we have inside the fact internet sales table, we have the DIM date, we have the customer, which is linked to the DIM geography, and we have the product subcategories and the product categories, and down here we have the promotions. So that's basically our dimensions, and in the middle is the fact table. That's a typical starter schema, with the exception that the product dimension is actually snowflaked, so it's not just one table, it's snowflaked in 3 different tables, always with a foreign key relationship. So let me just add one more element here. I think that's important before we continue creating the cube. You could of course have several data sources, so you could maybe add an Oracle database here, Oracle database, as a new source, but it's usually here are the providers or the drivers to access those, access database, etc. But it's usually best practice to have one data warehouse database, which in that case the AdventureWorks DW 2008. So even though it's technically possible, I would not recommend it unless certain criteria in the project doesn't allow to build one united data source. The data source view then, if you have several data sources, could unite all those several data sources to one view, and in the literature that's sometimes referred as the unified dimensional model. Just want to mention that in case that question comes up. Now our next step to create a cube, since we don't have a cube yet, so our next step to create it is basically the same. We go to cube, we say new cube, and what's happening now is we see the cube wizard. Just hit next. Now the cube wizard gives us several possibilities here. So we could create a cube based on existing tables, we create an empty cube, or we just generate tables in the data source. For our purpose here, we of course want to create tables based on the data source view we already created, so based on existing tables. Usually you cannot create a cube without a data source view if you want to base that cube based on existing tables. You can create the third option here, generate tables in the data source without a data source view. I think that's possible, but for the purpose of this example, using existing tables will totally work. So templates, that's all not important for now, so we just continue down the road. Now here in that drop down menu you can select the data source view. Since we just have one in that project, the appropriate one, the correct one, is already selected, and then it basically wants to know which of those tables is going to be our measure group table. Now the measure group table is basically the fact table. If you're not sure about this, you could hit success, and then it tells you the internet sales table, which is correct. If you know it, you can just manually click it. That's about it. And then the next dialog here basically shows us the measures included in that fact table. Which of those will we like to include in the cube, right? We don't need to include every single column or measure here. So for instance, the currency key, I neglect the whole currency aspect here, so we basically treat that whole cube as it's just US dollars. We don't need a currency key, we don't need a sales territory key, the revision number. We would like to have the order quantity, and we would like to have the unit price. That's fine. We need the extended amount and discount amount. That's the unit price we don't need. So basically I just go through and eliminate those I don't think I need. The fact internet sales count is basically just a counter. I won't include it in that example. So if I selected all of those items, I go through, and you can already see here in the dimension part now, Analysis Services recognizes hierarchies. So there's a DIM product, and then there is the DIM product table, the DIM product subcategory, and the DIM product category. So that's already a hierarchy here. The promotion, there is no other relationship to other tables, the DIM date as well. And then we have the customer, which has a foreign key relationship to the geography. Okay, and then the fact internet sales, we don't need this one. This is a bit puzzling to me why the guys from Microsoft included a fact table as a option to select it in the dimension. Maybe it's a special type of dimension which we'll cover later, but it actually doesn't make sense to have that here. Just confirm that, and then you see here create cube name. Of course I don't want to have that name DSV. In that case I say just AdventureWorks DV underscore 2008 or DW 2008 underscore cube. And you see here we have the measure group and we have the dimensions. So we say finish. And as you can see in the Solution Explorer now, Business Intelligence Development Studio created a cube for us, and also it looks similar to the data source view, but notice that the colors are different. So in the cube the effect internet sales is yellow and the dimension tables are blue, and in the data source view the colors are all the same. So that's how I distinguish them. Over here you have a measure window and you have a dimension window. You can play around and explore those a bit more, but let's focus now on getting first. Let's just process that cube. Now for some of you that concept might be completely new. Processing a cube just means to, let's put it simple, to create a structure that a cube is browsable. Okay, so in the background there's a process going on building files which then can be browsed. That's basically, in a little bit of simplified way, what processing is all about. So I say here process the cube, and you'll see it takes a little bit of time and we get an error. There were errors building and deployment. Would you like to continue? Well, probably doesn't make much sense, but I just want to show you that excuse me, when you click now on the project with a right click, down here there are the properties, and in the deployment you see the target server, and this is pre-configured to localhost, but in my case, since I work with a named instance installation, that won't work, and that's why we have that error. So I just type in my server name and my named instance name. Okay, and then I try it again, process. Actually I don't want to process the project, what I just did. I want to process the cube, which in that case wouldn't make a difference since we just have one cube in that project, but just want to point that difference out here. So now see the processing go through, and we have the cube processed. I close that one, and if we go to the Browse tab here in the cube structure, let me close that one, we should already be able to see a number here, and that's good. That's a good sign. Alright, see you in the next video.